Greetings, people of the interwebs. Jake here. So as you can tell by the title of this video, my question that I ask is, who is Star Wars for now? Because to me, like, obviously with the movies, starting from The Force Awakens up to The Rise of Skywalker, each movie was progressively making less and less money. Now, granted, even if The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker were not so divisive or were good, they were never going to make as much money as The Force Awakens because that was just a complete phenomenon because that was Star Wars returning after a 15-year gap, and people are excited. But even still, like, each movie was just progressively making less and less money, and then even with the TV shows, it's kind of the same thing. Like, obviously they weren't making money because they're a streaming show, but like the streaming numbers are progressively getting less and less. And so I know a lot of studios like Disney, one of the big ones, that keep saying that they're trying to appeal to modern audiences, whatever that means, and whoever the modern audience is. I don't think it's working because if this mystical modern audience, again, whoever that may be, is such a key demographic that all these big studios are trying to reach out to, kind of makes me wonder why all these big franchise shows and movies are not doing too well. Now, granted, part of that is just, in my opinion, a lot of these big franchise movies and shows have just been poorly written. That's my biggest issue with a lot of these, is just poorly written. They just feel really lazily, just kind of sloppily done. Like they're just making content for the sake of content rather than taking the time to actually craft the story, characters, plot development, all that stuff. But even still, so and it definitely seems like a lot of Star Wars now, and also this video isn't me just trying to bash Star Wars or make anyone feel bad for still being a fan of Star Wars or anything. Like, this is kind of I guess me genuinely trying to get other people's thoughts on who is this franchise for now. Because outside of the first two seasons of Mandalorian, which I feel like those were probably, that was definitely trying to bring the fans back after so many people were kind of disenfranchised after the sequel trilogy, and it felt very much like the original trilogy. And so I feel like that show, the whole point of that show originally, and I'm sure even to this point, is to try and, again, bring back the fans, especially the old school fans who grew up with the original trilogy, because it evoked a lot of those same feelings and emotions of that original trilogy. And even though I really liked a show like Andor did feel completely different from Star Wars, which I've heard from people who even liked the show. That was one of their biggest complaints, is that Andor didn't feel like Star Wars, which is fair because it didn't. But that was one of the reasons why I enjoyed it, because for a franchise that's been around as long as Star Wars, that's not a bad idea to branch out and try to almost kind of make different genres within the Star Wars series, or just try to try new things. And I think that's smart too with any franchise, to appeal to different demographics, but scale that accordingly. So I know, again, I'll use Disney for an example, because they've been trying to reach a more female audiences with both Marvel and Star Wars, which is not inherently a bad idea. That's smart. It's a good business move. However, I think the thing that they're, and I could be wrong here. I'm no business expert or anything like that or an expert on demographics. However, it seems to me that most women who would be would be interested in stuff like Star Wars or the Marvel movies and shows, they're already fans. They've probably been fans for years, and so the women who aren't fans or who haven't already watched Star Wars and Marvel and stuff like that for the last few years, there's probably not a big enough number of them to support a movie like, say, The Marvels, for example, which was an ungodly amount of money, like depending on the report, close to like 300 million. Which I feel like 300 million, that should only be reserved for like an Avengers level movie. Anything that's not an Avengers level movie, at least in the Marvel universe, does not need to be that expensive, and especially any other franchise. I don't think needs to be that expensive. That's absurd. So, if you're trying to reach like a female demographic, and I'll use Star Wars because that's kind of what I started this video in or with. So if you're trying to reach like a brand new female audience with Star Wars, okay, that's totally fine. But don't spend like, again, $200 million on a Star Wars show or movie geared towards a female demographic that is maybe only 5% of the population, if that, or of the demographic that would potentially kind of jump on board this new project for Star Wars. So I think that's the thing that kind of baffles me. And admittedly, again, I'm no expert on this, so maybe there's like data to support why Disney and all these big studios and stuff like that are trying to reach like these demographics of like women and ethnic minorities and stuff like that. Which again, totally fine. I'm all for it. But I just feel like these demographics aren't large enough to support the budgets. And again, I don't know if that's what they're trying to do now, is if they're just trying to appeal to these smaller demographics. But I think in a way, that's I don't know. I feel like the way I phrase this will it's probably gonna sound bad, but like I feel like in a way that's kind of a maybe not the best business move, because what made Star Wars, the original trilogy, so popular is the mass appeal. A lot of the themes and a lot of those characters, a lot of people could if not identify with completely, they could at least see some elements of themselves in like Luke or something like that. And also, they were very likable characters. Like you have Han Solo, who starts off as a very selfish smuggler who really only cares about money until the end of A New Hope, when he decides to like return to the rebellion and essentially join the rebellion at the end, and saves Luke from Darth Vader. So you actually have like these well fleshed out characters who go have growth and develop throughout the trilogy. And again, like, just the story, as simplistic as it is, has mass appeal. That's one of the reasons why the original trilogy worked so well and why it's so beloved 40 years later. And that's kind of how it is with, like, a lot of movies for the longest time. Like, your big blockbusters is they were trying to reach the biggest audience possible. Because, obviously, if you're reaching the most people possible, the more likely your movie is going to do well financially. And so that's one thing that I also kind of don't get to, where all these studios are trying to like, they're investing so much money into like these projects that are geared towards these smaller demographics of people, and I don't know, but at the same time it's like, well, I mean, again, if you're a business like these movie studios, you want to make money. That's like. That is the foundation of any business, is making money. And so I would think that, like, okay, make your theatrical movies, try to make those like as four quadrant as possible. Try to make those appealing to everyone across the globe, of any gender, of any sexuality, any background, regardless of what country they come from. Make it as appealing to everybody as possible. Because, again, more likely, or the odds are better that you're going to make your money back and make profit. And then if you want to do specific projects tailored to these smaller demographics, then I think that's actually a really good idea. But, like, again, scale those down to a smaller budget. Like, make like a, I don't know, 30 million, like, horror movie in Star Wars. So you can kind of, like, you're keeping the brand fresh, you're changing it up, trying something new, but it's not a big financial risk because you're only investing like 30 million into it. Or again, if you want to do like a female-centric story, whether it be a movie, TV show, that's cool. But again, scale up the budget accordingly, so that way you're not, just throwing money at this project and watching it flop, like so many other big movies have done over the last couple of years. So I don't know. I guess that's my very, again, as typical fashion, my rambly, roundabout way of kind of circling back to the initial question of who is Disney making Star Wars for now? Because it really doesn't feel like they're making it for like the mass audience, like for everyone, like it initially was, with the original trilogy and the prequels, and like some of the games and novels and comics and stuff like that. And so if they're not making it for everyone, or as many people as possible, who is it for? And like what's their game plan here? How do they intend on keeping this franchise alive and thriving? Because again, based on reviews, based on like finances, Star Wars is not doing so well. And again, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Again, the whole point of this video is not to just like bash Star Wars. Again, I've definitely got my problems with the franchise. Because for those of you who've not watched my video, I did a whole like almost 30-minute long video on why I don't care about Star Wars anymore. More specifically, excuse me, more specifically, new Star Wars. Obviously, I still have an undying love for the original trilogy. Even the prequels, I have a lot of appreciation for. As an adult, as flawed as they are, and again, even some of the new stuff like Andor and Rogue One, absolutely love, and some of the best Star Wars stuff ever. But if Disney's not making Star Wars for the mass audiences, whether it be like the old school fans, whoever, who are they making this for? What's their game plan? What are they trying to achieve here? I don't know. That's my very rambly video for the day. Give me your thoughts below on who you think Star Wars is for now. Is it for anybody? Or is Lucasfilm just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks? Because that's kind of what it seems like to me. There doesn't seem to be any plan at all. It still blows my mind that there's never really been a plan. Once they bought Star Wars, they just announced the sequel trilogy and were like, you get a movie. Now you get a movie. And we're just going to do a bunch of stuff and hope that it works out. So yeah, I don't know. Leave your thoughts below. What do you think? Who's this for? Who are they trying to reach with Star Wars nowadays? But hopefully you enjoyed this video, and until next, everyone, cheers.